Hello and welcome to the debut episode of Let's Make a Profit podcast. I want to introduce the co-host, Rebecca Howell from Custom Bookkeeping and Accounting and a certified Profits First advisor. Welcome.
Thank you, Roger.
This will be fun. And also joining us today is Paul Long, the Senior Vice President of Business Banking and SBA Lending at Timberland Bank. Welcome, Paul. Thank you for joining.
Hello.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
So, Rebecca, tell everybody about your podcast.
Let's Make a Profit podcast is going to be really specializing on the book Profit First, what I've learned since I've become certified with Profit First. It just, the ins and outs, the ups and downs of a small business owner and how we struggle to make profits. And the book, if you've had an opportunity to read it, is a great read that shows you how, as a business owner, you can start producing profits. And the podcast is really just going to be talking about profits first, accounting, bookkeeping, procedures, and I am going to have some really special guests joining me along the lines. So you definitely want to stay tuned. So I'm really, really excited about this whole process.
Yeah, and those great guest starts with Paul and Roger.
Yeah, yes. And I will drop a little hint. I did get some good news that the author is actually going to be joining me at some point in time.
That's pretty exciting. So you want to tell everybody how you came up with the name Profit? Let's Make a Profit?
Actually, my husband helped with that one. We were tossing back some ideas, and literally within 30 seconds of mentioning it to him, he says, "Let's make a profit." And I kind of went, that actually sounded good. So I played it around amongst the groups of our mastermind, and everybody seemed to like it. So it just stuck.
Well, today we're going to focus on not so much profit first methodology, but we're going to talk about what's probably on the forefront of every small business owner's mind is the PPP loan. And so, exactly. Paul's excited already.
We should have a lot of fun with this one.
Absolutely, because there's nothing more exciting than the PPP loan. Yeah. At least it's kind of fun to say. So, Paul, tell everybody why you wanted to be part of this podcast. What do you bring to the table besides your great smile and personality?
Well, hey, my love for small business it runs very deep, as it truly is a passion. And so any way that I can help business owners do anything when it comes to finance and or accounting or anything on how to get a loan or whatever the case is, I want to help. And so I can use my experience with the PPP program in Timberland Bank and being able to share that with you guys and kind of be able to help through this process.
Well, thank you for joining us. And I know, Paul, you've been on a couple of my podcasts as well. And I just want everybody to hear again from me to you, Paul, is that, in the banking world, you get what you get. And one thing that I appreciate you, Paul, is that you're always going to be honest and you're always going to be forthright, and you're not going to, you're not going to allow me to continue or my clients to continue kicking tires if it's just not going to be something that's going to happen. And so you save us a lot of time and effort and energy, and you give us good guidance on what we need to do. So thank you for being you and in that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then and this is probably the most important thing that I'm going to say about Paul before we get started in this podcast, is that Paul and I grew up within like blocks of each other in a town called Pasco, Washington. Here, so
wow,
yeah. Paul was
clearly a few decades between us, but
yeah, but you show your age well.
Hey, thanks, Roger.
Yeah, I appreciate that. All right,
leave it to Roger.
Exactly. So we've had our fun. So now let's really talk about the fun item about PPP loans. All right. So, growing up, one of my mentors told me that profitability is the penicillin of all business. Now, during the COVID-19 crisis, I think profitability is not the word anymore. It's pivot, so it's another P word. Mm-hmm. Everybody has learned how to pivot to see if they can at least bring in some of that profitability or bring back some of that profitability. So the federal government, the SBA, was very good at the very beginning to help the small business owners out. not having any idea of how long this COVID-19 pandemic was going to last. And so let's get really into the PPP loan. Rebecca, what is the real story and the components of the PPP loan?
The PPP funds were issued through SBA, through your banks. They came through your lending industries, your lending companies. And it was really to help people, small business owners, keep their employees on payroll and try to keep them off of unemployment as much as possible. That was, I think, the real reason for PPP. I don't think everybody expected that COVID was going to go this long and that we were going to have to deal with this much. Obviously, a lot of people have gone through their PPP money so far, and they're kind of going, what is the next step? So it was nice to have the assistance, but, planning could have been a little bit different on it, obviously, and we all kind of have our opinions on this. But we'll leave that to another day. But yeah, it was to help keep the unemployment system not bogged down, which we all realize that didn't work all that well either. So
especially here in Washington State. Yep.
But the PPP did help some small businesses keep their doors open. I know certainly myself, it helped in my situation. So I was able to keep my employees.
One thing that's really important for people to know is, what the government came out with, and again, the government takes a while to process anything and to do anything. And that's just what it is. But they pretty much asked banks across the nation to do a decade's worth of SBA loans in a matter of weeks. Mm-hmm. So, of course, it was going to be a horrible process. I don't think anybody thought it was going to be easy peasy. They did, for what they did, it was actually quite impressive to pull it off. And so, there's going to be delays, and it's working with the government.
Mm-hmm.
And from a business consultant standpoint, it forced business owners to get their financials up to date on a regular basis, on a current basis. So many of, I know a lot of business owners who, they do it maybe quarterly, they might do it semi-annually, or maybe they wait till the end of the year to do it, but at least it got them to think, okay, I need to get these numbers sooner than later. Mm-hmm. All right. So,
and knowing what a 940 and a 941 was, and understanding all that. Yeah.
Exactly. So this podcast is really going to really kind of summarize really the PPP funding process and what the whole idea was about. And then, because right now the future is still pretty muddy, some banks are accepting forgiveness applications. Some have just been notified that they're going to start. Some haven't done that yet. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But the next 3 podcasts will be specifically on really the tax ramifications, the potential of new PPP funding, loan applications, and then really how to really get your application in to see if you really satisfied the forgiveness on your first loan.
You're looking for ducks in a row. We're trying to get all of our ducks in a row to make sure that application process works smoothly.
Okay, so now, I don't know, some banks have already started the loan, the application process for the forgiveness. So what can a recipient of a PP loan really expect?
Well, one of the things, and again, every bank is very different. At Timberland, we have opened up forgiveness. We have a portal that we established and paid for to make it easy for us and easy for the customer. There's some banks out there that are still trying to make sure that the rules that come out, that they may process it themselves. So they're not opening up the door yet. Again, every bank is doing something differently because the rules are coming out so slow. Again, larger banks are going to have to move. They're going to move a lot slower. It's like moving a cruise ship versus a fishing boat. So, smaller community banks are going to be able to do it quicker. But at the end of the day, it's all going to have the same result, and that is hopefully forgiveness. So every bank is different. Check with your bank what they're doing. Don't be surprised if they say, I'm sorry, I don't know, or wait another 30 days, or. and that's normal. So don't think, oh, my bank's dropping the ball. No, they're just doing what they need to do. And at the end of the day, forgiveness is still hopefully imminent.
Exactly. Rebecca, what kind of documents will these recipients need to?
First off, I want to start. I mean, I feel for these small business owners. I'm getting phone calls from my clients, talking to other small business owners. The process is very frustrating for them, and I feel for them. I understand it, because it's just frustrating for us as the bookkeepers and the bankers. We're trying to, keep informed, keep on the changes. So first, I want to let you guys know, just, hey, it's okay to be frustrated, but also just ask some questions, and we'll try to make you feel as comfortable as possible. The whole process is really going to start with payroll. I mean, that is what it is. It's a payroll protection plan. So we're going to start with, quarterly filings, making sure that you've processed those payroll. They're also, really requiring that you kept your same employee numbers, or were able to at least bring back to what you had at your employee numbers. There are some different stipulations with it on if, some restaurants weren't even able to open. So there are some safe harbor things that are happening with people that were not able to bring back those number of employees that they had prior to this COVID pandemic. So it's going to kind of depend on, sole proprietors are not going to have those payroll reports. So, we're going to have to go to the bank statements and check copies, and if you used them for rent and utilities, you're going to have to get copies of those checks when those cleared and when those were written, because they're going to make sure that those were within that period of time. Obviously, some of their requirements prior to that was that your lease was in place prior to COVID, that you could use it for the rent as long as those things were in place prior to that. So there's just going to be a lot of different things that are going to be needed from people. And, I think the biggest thing is just payroll reports and bank statements and check copies is really what we're going to be looking at. I also created an Excel's checklist with all of my clients that when their money came in, and verifying when they spent it, that they spent it on their their proper percentages that they did, and what they spent it on utilities and rent, and when they finally were done with their funds, and we knew exactly what date that was. So I've been keeping track of Excel spreadsheets for the clients, and so they have a good understanding of where they did spend that money.
If I could add on this.
Absolutely.
If you are a huge business and you got $2 million or more in a PPP, prepared to really, the SBA is going to go through this with a very fine-tooth comb. It is going to be critical. But again, if you're under 2 million, like most of America, everything that you just said is exactly the case. And I'm showing on the screen, what we at Timberland are looking for each and every deal. And it seems like a lot, and well, it is.
Exactly. And thank you for sharing that with the audience, Paul. Now, I hope everybody that's listening to this really took heart on what Paul and Rebecca just said. The difference between good bookkeepers and great bookkeepers and good bankers and great bankers is that they talk to their clients. They don't talk at them, they talk with them. They have conversations, but they also talk and they use the words that the audience can understand. And so, that's what I appreciate the both of you two, is that you understand, the depth of what each small business owner knows and what they don't know. And you take the time to talk to them if they're at a higher level of understanding with their financials, or at a beginning level, novice level, that you guys take the time to really educate your clients in a way that's going to be, something that they're going to catch on to and, and start to use right away. So thank you for that, guys. Now, I know that so many times in life, especially as a small business consultant, I see people doing things over and over and over again. And when I ask them why they do it that particular way, they really tell me, I don't know, I've always seen it this way, or we've always done it this way. And there's nothing more frustrating from a business consultant standpoint to watch them do something that is so useless, but they do it with great efficiency. It's just useless, though. It doesn't mean nothing to them. So I'm saying that to lead into the next question, because now that we've now launched the application process for forgiveness, and there's a lot of muddiness there. What does the future really look like? And so maybe if there's some people out there doing some things that really doesn't need to be done, maybe we can share that with them right now. So Rebecca, why don't you tell us what you think?
Well, I actually read a study. I read a lot on this, and I'm making sure that I stay informed. But I read a study from the National Federation of Independent Businesses, and the study said that 43% of small business owners pretty much figure out that they're going to use the easy form. 57% of them, they don't even know what form they're supposed to fill out. So we're here to try to help them. One of the other things I did is I also created a checklist to help people through this process. What is the difference between the forms? Which forms do you need to fill out for your situation? And then just understanding what your covered period is. Some people are like, what is that? They don't understand the 8-week or the 24-week. I'm recommending that most people kind of fall with the 24-week, because when I did the math on the calculations, the 8-week didn't really work out for very many people. So the 24 covered week is the way you definitely want to go. I am going to put that little tidbit in there. But most people, I had calculated it on myself. My funds came in the first week of May. So my covered period is going to end about October 15th. People that received it closer to the 1st of July are going to go into the mid-December. So we have some time, but at the same time, we don't want to procrastinate. But we also want to tell people that, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard this, the Congress is working on the $150,000 limit. And we're telling people, yeah, exactly. We're all crossing our fingers. A lot of us. Because this is going to really qualify for most of the small business community that I myself work with, and I'm sure you, Paul, work with as well. We're kind of trying to tell people just hold off at least until the election, because I think the election is going to be a lot of a deciding factor of how this happens. But at least through the election, because if we get the $150,000 limit of natural forgiveness, just automatic forgiveness, then we don't have to worry about all this paperwork. And it would be nice if that's something that they would do. So tell people, wait, but don't procrastinate at the same time, because this is going to affect our 2020 tax returns as well as our 21 tax returns, depending on when forgiveness happens. So we do have to, kind of talk about those things as well.
And one thing it's important to know is you have 10 weeks from the end of your covered period in order to actually apply for forgiveness. So your bank should not be asking for a loan payment at all, because SBA came out with rules on that. So so this is going to go in through 2021 a lot longer than I think people really thought.
And so you both have to deal with the business owner's financials. And I know there's a big question, where are they recorded in a financial statement?
Yes.
Look, this is kind of my area, so I should probably help with this one.
Please.
Technically, it should be a liability on your balance sheet, because if it is a loan, that's where loans belong. If it is forgiven, we will deal with those tax consequences at that, or whatever those tax implications look like. But right now, it should be a loan on your balance sheet, because that really is what it is. We also need to understand that in the 2020 tax return, we cannot write off those deductions, because that is somebody else's money. It's not yours. So, there's some journal entry things that are going to have to be done at the end of the year with that. But right now, because we're in this holding pattern, it does need to be a liability on your balance sheet.
And let me add to that, if you don't mind. It is not income. It is not income and a balance sheet item. This is not income at all. It is a balance sheet. If you went out and got a line of credit advance, you're not going to put that in as income. It's the same thing as you would on a PPP loan. It is a balance sheet debt. It should affect your equity, and it is not income.
And so to kind of help explain this, and tell me if I'm wrong or not, that really, even at the end of the year when you are filing your taxes, it's not going to show up as income on your tax return.
Correct.
But as Rebecca said, neither are those expenses that you paid for with that loan money.
Which right now they are showing on most people's.
Exactly.
So,
Oh,
Exactly.
of course. I'm
All
sure
right.
the IRS is just looking forward to
oh yeah,
auditing and looking through that.
treasure trove of audits on this.
Yeah,
Totally.
Exactly. All right. So I know you just kind of broached the subject, Rebecca, but what is your system or process to guide individuals and companies to take the appropriate action?
I think that the biggest thing is don't go in this alone. The people that have, like myself and Paul, I mean, we're here. We're here to help. I have made sure that I stayed on top of the news. I remember when PPP first came out, my clients would send me articles and say, hey, I found this. And I'd have to go to SBA and verify that the information, do the fact check on it. Because, stories, I mean, yeah, internet. Let's not get started on that. But the people that have taken the time to research and know the answers and to understand it and help you through this process, you need to be talking to those people. And myself, I mean, I really will tell you, I spend probably at least an hour a week checking, SBA's facts, FAQs. I mean, the questions, the research. My clients are sending me all of every time their bank or their financial institution sends them an email, PPP, they send it to me. I look at it, I read it, I research it so that I can answer their questions. So you want to make sure that if you don't have a bookkeeper or an accountant, and Paul, you can confirm with this. I mean, most banks are saying, please talk to your tax preparer or your accountant or your bookkeeper. You're kicking it back to the bookkeepers and the accountants. So it's like, make sure that the person that you are getting your information from, if it is your bookkeeper or your accountant, have they done the research? Do they really know what they're talking about? If they don't, find someone like myself or someone else that you do know that has been doing the research along the way.
And don't try to say, oh, I'll just try to do it myself. Just like you were saying, oh, I have an in-house bookkeeper. I'm sure the in-house bookkeeper is great, but I'm sure your in-house bookkeeper also doesn't do your taxes either. So you need to make sure that you have a CPA, an accountant, you have someone to work with in order to do this, and do not do it alone. It's worth whatever charge they're going to charge you.
And they are going to charge you. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. But it's worth it. But see, what the other thing is that we need to understand that there's certain banks, and I've read this, the bank is specifically asking, do not start the process until you are ready to complete the process. So you need to make sure that you have all the information before you start it. And the other thing is that we don't know. SBA, how many times, if you submit your application, are they going to say, okay, well, we denied it, but we're going to give you a second chance? They might give you one, but the number of applications that they're going to have to process, they're probably going to limit that back and forth. So
you're going to be so far down the ladder that good luck.
Keep pushing you down. So it's like, make sure that you take the time before you're physically ready to do this, that you are ready. Because again, like I said, the bank is looking for you to start it and finish it. And also too, the SBA would like to approve those the first time and not have to do this back and forth.
And just so you know too, the bank just doesn't take your paperwork, throw it to SBA, and then we're done. We actually do look at it. Mm-hmm. We don't go through the full calculations or anything like that, but we do make sure that everything's there. So your banker should maybe push back a little bit or ask a question before it gets submitted to SBA. That's normal.
But I do know some people went through, like PayPal Loan Builder, there wasn't that connection. So, if you did not, and I remember when we submitted the applications for the PPP, a lot of times they just kicked it back, but they didn't tell you why. So I don't think that they're going to help with that process. I mean, as well as an actual private banker. So people have to.
SBA has certain rules that
Mm-hmm.
that the bank does have to do some sort of due diligence. So there should be something.
There should, yes.
And Paul, you had an analogy, a story that you wanted to tell about Share the Screw.
Refresh my memory what that was. You set me up perfectly, but what?
Well, you the other day when we were going through our final talk-throughs with this, you brought up an analogy about sharing the screws.
Paul and I are both looking at each other going, I don't remember.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I'm sorry, I'm going to
Thanks,
stand up for you,
Roger.
Paul, because I'm sorry, I don't remember that conversation. So,
Yeah.
I
Roger,
would have
you
wrote
have
it down.
By all means.
Maybe my screw is loose because because I wrote the note down to remind Paul because you wanted me to remind you to tell this story.
Okay.
Fair enough. Well,
Crickets.
I-
Crickets, it's okay.
I'm glad that we've had, because it was getting kind of deep with the conversation. So I'm glad that
yes.
we had a lighter moment. But, but one thing that you guys both brought up, though, is that as you guys start to help these guys through this process, what I have found as a business consultant, that once they start understanding their numbers now because they had to, now all of a sudden they start to improve. They've improved upon, that part of owning a business. So there is some good things to this. And, you mentioned that earlier, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, when are you going to have time to do it right the second time, and so it's so important to, before you just jump in and say, okay, here's my application, make sure it's done right. So it's not going to potentially get denied. So now you have to pay back that loan. Or that you have to wait another, let's call it 8-10 months before the SBA can finally get to that loan again, or that loan application again. So that's great advice.
Add more to the frustration you've already experiencing.
Exactly.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. So now let's close this up. What final advice would you give the audience?
Go ahead.
Well, okay. So a couple things. One is, there's some talk about a second round of PPP that's going on. Again, it's talk. It's nothing's law. Trust me, you'll hear about it when it is, because the news is going to absolutely tell you. But chances are you're probably going to go back to the same funding source that you did in order to do that and to be able to get that second round. And so just be aware of that. But again, final words of wisdom, exactly what we talked about today. Make sure you have your books in order. Make sure you have your taxes, the list that I provided earlier, that's going to be critical. And definitely work with an accountant, CPA, in order to make sure that you are absolutely doing this correctly. If you try to do it yourself, you are going to get so frustrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're really trying to save on the frustration part. It's the key part of this.
Yeah.
But obviously, and then the next 3 podcasts that we're having too as well is going to go into a little bit more depth on these. We're going to cover the PPP application, making sure that people understand that. We're going to bring Paul back and talk about the banking and the other loan options that they have if they do need additional funding because they are unable to get back to full capacity. So yeah, I mean, just talk to people that have done the research. So really find out. And if you're a bookkeeper, again, I like I said, I created my checklist. I'm more than happy to share it with people. My contact information will be on the bottom. If you contact me and want me to help you, I certainly will. But I made this checklist for people to share with their bookkeepers and their accountants. Ask them if they can help you with these things. And if they give you kind of a deer in the headlights look, find somebody else.
Yeah.
Somebody else to talk to.
Yeah. And in closing, don't be pound wise and penny foolish here, or penny wise and pound foolish here. The bottom line is that if you've got, let's say, a $50,000 PPP loan out there, don't be too cheap and not spend a couple $100 and get the right advice and get the right everything set in stone, so that way when you do fill out the application, it is 100% correct the first time.
And another little tidbit I've heard is, a couple $100 that it's going to cost somebody. Like if you came to me, that's about what I'm going to charge. Some of the bookkeepers, I've heard them talk, they're doing percentage of your loans. So if you get it forgiven, they're going to take 1 or 2%. So first ask them what they're going to charge you to do this. And if they're going to charge you a percentage of your loan amount, run, please run.
Great advice. All right. Thank you, guys. This has been very helpful. And Paul, we'll see you shortly with the next podcast.
Sounds good.
Thank you,
Bye,
Paul.
guys.
Have a good day.